Hey, my dudes, what's happening? I'm back, baby. And XP Pen sent me another tablet display. Technically, this is a screen that you draw on. This is the Artist24 Pro, and I want to do a rapid fire review. I don't want to do all the unboxing and all the elaborate kind of drawn out stuff. Let's just talk about the tablet, man. Let's talk about the benefits. Let's talk about the questions that you might have about it. I'm going to do a direct comparison to how it stacks up against the Innovator16, which I just a few weeks ago did a review of, a very thorough in-depth review of. Follow the link below to check out my review of that, which I ranked as one of the best tablets I've ever used, in contrast to any other tablet from any other maker. XP Pen has been making a lot of really high quality drawing tools for digital artists these days. Let's see how this one stacks up, shall we? So first up, what is it? What is the XP Pen Artist24 Pro? This is a display. And it just so happens that you can draw on this display. So if you're used to working with paper, or let's say you're a comic book artist, or maybe you just don't like the idea of drawing off to the side of the screen and guessing where the icon is, or you can't make that mental connection, you need to like look at what you're doing and see the mark on the screen. This is the kind of display that you're going to want. Now, it is not a self-contained computer. That doesn't really exist unless you're going for an iPad Pro. But something like that, you're not going to get as big of a screen, and it's going to be a lot more expensive. To give you an idea, the Artist24 Pro comes in at about $900, although they do have a lot of sales at XP Pen. And the iPad Pro is going to cost you something closer to $2,000 for something like that. So you need a computer that goes with this, essentially, and you need that computer to be powerful enough to run a program. This does not come with any drawing programs. If you're an absolute beginner, I don't know that this is the best option for you. You might want to try something that's on the cheaper side to get your feet wet with digital drawing, or you might want to just go ahead and get yourself an iPad with an Apple Pencil. So who is this display for? This is for somebody who probably has been using a comparable competitive product. Wacom is their biggest competitor. They're the Ferrari of digital art drawing displays. And this is sort of like I would say it's the Honda. It's very reliable, but you are going to be paying a lot less for it. And they have pretty good customer service, and they put a lot of care into what they make. XP Pens are not cheap or flimsy. It doesn't feel like you're buying some piece of crap. In fact, the packaging is always extra special and nice, and they make you feel like you're just, you're going to have an art adventure when you open up a box of XP Pen tools. They get glowing reviews. A lot of people have switched entirely. Aside from a couple of hiccup issues that XP Pen seems to continue to struggle with, which I'll talk about a little bit more in the video. But for the most part, you could go all the way pro with a display like this. And because it's the larger size, it's actually more for a desktop. So if you're comfortable drawing and painting at a desk, this is definitely going to be more for you than, say, like, if you want more mobility, like you go out to cafes a lot, not in 2020, but any other time in the universe, then you're probably okay with something like the Innovator16, which is also just a display that you draw on the screen, but it's much more compact. To give you an idea, the weight on this is probably something close to 18 pounds, and the weight on the Innovator16 is something closer to like 4 or 5 pounds. This display is not for drawing on your lap or drawing on the couch or anything like that. It's definitely designed to be something that sits on your desk next to your computer. It can be used as a primary display as well, because it has an awesome little shifting stand in the back that's built into it. So you can also mount it onto an arm as well. So it's definitely something that I would recommend to college students or people who are converting from another brand like Wacom or something like that. But I think that there's a reason why the word pro is in the title. This is not something for beginners. It's like the price point isn't accessible for somebody who's maybe a little wishy-washy about it. If you've never owned a drawing tablet before, consider getting a Veic or a Huion or even a cheaper XP Pen, maybe a tablet off to the side or something, to just get your feet wet with it. You don't want to spend more than like $100 or $150 on your very first tablet. If you're not ready to go pro, just don't buy anything that says pro in it, In short, XP Pen is the only alternative for professionals. Or maybe the iPad Pro, the large iPad Pro. But that's just my opinion on it. That's my take on it. I've tried a lot of them. And what I found is that the brand XP Pen is much more sort of in line with being a pro competitor. Everything else is beginner. Okay, now that's a lot of that's common knowledge for a lot of people, but for those of you who don't know about it, hopefully that's going to be information that'll help inform you as to which display you might want to get. Now let's talk specifically about the Artist24 Pro. So before we talk about this, let's dig into the stats. We got stats. Now this isn't exactly a 4K screen resolution. It actually comes in at 2560 by 1440, which is actually a little bit more of a higher resolution than the Innovator16, but you're going to need that because the screen size itself is 23.8 inches diagonal. Now this is important when you have a bigger screen because I used to have a Cintiq, and that one is a 1080p screen, and you could definitely see the pixels. But with this one, I'm not seeing that at all, and I'm not seeing any pixels. So they did a good job of increasing the pixel density for the larger display. In fact, with the built-in stand on the back of this, you could actually just use this as a second monitor, which is what I do. So then my MacBook just becomes like, you know, for YouTube videos or reference or whatever, while I'm drawing in Photoshop on the larger full-size 24-inch. If you're concerned about brightness or the quality of the screen itself, I'm going to stack this one up as better than the Cintiqs that you saw maybe even only 2 years ago. The screen quality here is really nice. The screen has a really good contrast value as well, and it has 178-degree viewing angles. So if you're looking at it from the side, or if you're rotating it, or you're looking up at it, if it's angled up like a drawing desk, you're not going to have any troubles with that. It's not going to like make it look diluted or brighten it out, blow it out or anything like that. It doesn't have any kind of like a weird filmy look on the screen. Some of the lower resolution screens will look like they have like a Vaseline on the screen, but not this. It's really crisp. It's really clean actually. With the pen is not dissimilar from the Innovator16 or any of the other current standard XP pens. I mean, they don't have like two different versions of their pen. They just have their current one that they're using across all of their devices, to my understanding. And this one it's pretty solid. It feels a little bit light in your hand, lighter weight than what you might be used to if you're coming from a Wacom, for instance. But it also feels a little bit more like there's spring in the pen nib itself. And man, this is something that I've expressed with pretty much any tablet that is not a Wacom tablet. Wacom tablets, I feel like when you press on it, you do get pressure sensitivity, but it doesn't feel like there's a spring in the pen nib. With XP Pen or any other pen, I feel like there's always so much more spring. And so like that's a question of what you feel most comfortable with. It's like some people like a loose clutch in their car, some people like it tight. But you get used to whichever one it is that you're working with. So if you've never used a Wacom, you won't feel or notice anything different. I hate to be so direct in my comparison, but I just don't care anymore. I just don't care if maybe I upset Wacom with some of these comments, or if I upset XP Pen. I really want to give you guys the most honest feedback I can about this. With that said, there is one issue with this pen. I found that it's great if you're working kind of slowly, but as soon as you start getting into speed painting or like really jamming out a lot of very quick successions of hatch marks or lines, sometimes the pen will just stutter. So if you're using an XP Pen and you find that you have this problem, one solution that I found from a little bit of research is that if you go into your Photoshop preferences and you go to performance, you need to make sure that you got this use graphics processor button here checkboxed. And that helped me with the problem, but there may be some more information about that. I think it's specific to Photoshop. And if you're like a normal human that draws at a normal human pace, you're not even going to notice this. It might never even be a problem for 99% of people. And I think that's why nobody really talks much about it. It's one of those things that's sort of like the little hiccup in the high performance machine. But I'm doing a review of this tablet, and I thought that for the few of you out there that it does concern you, you might want to know about this, and you might want to research more about it if you're one of those artists out there that needs to draw at lightning speed. The quick keys. The buttons are great. You know how these work. You can program them in the software and you can have them do macros like create a new layer or go back, in the history, or change brush size or create a transform, whatever your most common things are. I don't use them. I just use the keyboard. That's why I have my MacBook off to the side. One of the questions people keep asking me is like, hey, what about the parallax, man? Parallax. And what that is, they're talking about where you touch the pen to the actual screen, if the little icon where it's actually making the mark is not centered correctly, like precisely to the pixel where your pen is touching the screen. Well, guess what, man? I've never used a tablet in my life that had a parallaxing problem. You know why? Because I calibrate the display. I hit the little calibration button in the software, and then I calibrate it. And furthermore, I kind of like to have the icon a little bit off to the side, the cursor off to the side, so I can actually see what's under the pen. That's my style. If that's not your style, well, you can fix that by just calibrating that stuff. Let's talk about baller features. Now, this particular display, drawing display, has one of the most baller features that I've ever experienced in my life. Now, I work with a MacBook Pro, and if you know this, the last couple of years of MacBook Pros, they only have USB-C ports. This drawing display has one wire. That's right, I plug in a USB-C plug from the display to my computer, and that's it. Well, to be fair, I mean, it still has to plug into its own power supply, but it doesn't have a separate cable, or I don't have to have a ton of adapters to plug this into my MacBook Pro. Now, it also comes with a USB and an HDMI cable. So it's baller for me because essentially I plug in one cord into my MacBook Pro and bam, it immediately switches to a dual screen setup. So this is almost like just a docking station display workstation for me. This option needs to become a standard for all drawing tablets heretofore. And that brings me to the next questions. You're going to ask me like, hey, is this portable? No. The answer is no. You cannot fit this in a backpack. You should not take this when you travel. You probably will be pretty uncomfortable if you're thinking that you could sit on the couch and paint on this thing while you're watching TV or something. Like it's not super lightweight. Like, don't go and try to drive a car while you're using this thing. Bad idea, man. I mean, literally you have to think of it like a 20-some inch LCD display. Like you're if you feel like you'd be comfortable holding a TV in your lap, then sure, if you're a pretty big person, I suppose, but it might not be very comfortable. And don't get angry at me about these things. Geez, man, I'm just communicating the information. If that's your jam and you need something that's more mobile and you're maybe, I don't know, going to friends' houses and drawing a lot, get yourself that Innovator16 if you're really thinking that you want an affordable XP pen drawing tablet where you can draw on the screen. And with this Artist24 Pro, you're getting a lot more screen real estate, but at the trade-off of, something that's literally maybe 3 or 4 times its weight. So final question, will I be using this and do I recommend it to you? Now, I'm a seasoned pro. I've been doing this for a long, long time. I was used to the Wacom suite of tablets and displays. I tend to draw off to the side using an Intuos Pro, but with this, I would say I actually do use it. In fact, I let go of my old Cintiq from about 3 years ago because I'm just like, well, if I need a display that I want to draw on for bigger paintings, this is my jam. And in fact, when you look at this painting that I'm working on this, got a lot more detail than what you usually see in my paintings. So having the larger screen does make a little bit of a difference. Also, I'm 40 something now. So basically, like, my eyes aren't as good as you youngsters out there. So, for me, having a larger screen is actually really comfortable. It's really nice, especially if I'm digging deep into a painting. If I really want to up my game, which is something I'm trying to do this year, is to just put as much love and care as a painting needs, to really make it sing and get that level of detail that you don't, get as easily on a smaller screen. Because with a bigger screen, as you know, you can just step back and really soak it all in, and then you find a lot more details that you might want to constantly improve. But, it's really an immersive experience to have so much screen real estate. So I'm using it probably a lot more than my other ones, and I think that this is definitely a desktop setup for me. I love the one wire connection, and it allows me to just kind of dock my MacBook into a much larger station, and having my keyboard off to the side is a super extra special, just an excellent treat. But I probably will, when I am drawing on the couch or watching Star Trek or whatever I'm watching in the evenings, I'm definitely going to still be using my Intuos off to the side of my MacBook. But then when I need to really put the final touches on things, I'll dock it into my larger screen setup with this display. And that's where I'll put the cherry on top. But I think it would be very reasonable if you just had a desktop computer and this was your primary display. That would totally work. But if you're a beginner, 800 bones is a lot. So I'd seriously consider maybe picking up a Huion or a Vaic or something on the cheaper side. XP Pen does have some really good options in the more affordable range. But as far as tablets that you actually draw on the screen, this one is, I think they're top of the line device, and it's priced very reasonably. I think that especially with Cyber Monday coming up and Black Friday and all the sales that are coming up towards the end of the year, you probably get a pretty sweet deal on this. Considering that the most comparable product is probably the Wacom Cintiq 22-inch, which I haven't tried. Wacom doesn't send me tablets anymore. Not since that video where I explained how to fix that busted ass USB cable from the Intuos. I think that went viral. Kind of maybe ruffled a few feathers over there at Wacom. But hey, if you don't want an honest review, don't send me a tablet, man. I don't care. I'm on the side of the consumer, man. I'm on the side of the artist here. I get a lot of tablets from Huion. I get a lot of tablets from Vaic, and mostly XP Pen. And it's very rare that I see somebody comment like, hey, I bought an XP Pen because you recommended it and I hate it. I hear mostly that people say, hey, I got this XP Pen because you recommended it and it's been working out really well for me. That's like 99% of the comments that I get on that. And you can verify that by checking back on my other videos. I'm not trying to sell you an XP Pen, man. I don't even really care, but I will say this pretty much comes in like above your Huions and your Vaics, and they're not going to be happy with me about that. But those are the brands that you get when you're like just trying it out and you're not sure if you're going to stick with it. But XP Pen, pretty solid construction, pretty good quality overall, and a nice competitor for Wacom. I'm really glad they're there. I say that in every video because it's true, because I also think it's good for Wacom to have that competitor. It keeps them on their toes and it makes them have to think about things like that busted ass USB cable port in the old Intuos. That's what you call the value of a free market, capitalism at its best. Working for the consumer, really. All right, dudes, that's going to wrap it up for me on my thoughts on this XP Pen Artist24 Pro. If you've picked one of these up, please let me know what you think of it in the comments below. That might help somebody else who's considering picking it up. If you had any problems with your XP Pen, I would certainly want to know about that as well. I probably won't be doing any more tablet reviews unless it's like a real big step up in quality. Of course, if you like the artwork that you're seeing on the screen and you'd like to know more about my artwork, you can check out some of my other videos here on my YouTube channel. I talk about art techniques and I talk about like how to accomplish, your art goals and your dreams. Lately, I've been on a little bit more of a kick to teach people how to go independent and build their own business around their art and make a living off of your art. You can obviously ask me any questions in the comments below this video or any other. I do read all of my comments. One of the ways that I make my living, besides working in video games, is that I write a lot of fiction, and I've created an illustrated novel. My newest one is The Secrets of Kung Fu Leo, and it is a kung fu fantasy adventure with a lot of drawings in it. So go check that out. Just came out on Amazon and in print. So dudes, until next time, I want to thank you so much for stopping by, and I'll catch y'all mañana de bon. That's every Wednesday if you didn't know already. Until then, ciao, baby. Oh yeah.